Thank you for checking out Friends in the Corner podcast, stories and topics from around Kentucky. If you like today's episode, please consider giving us a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And to hear more episodes, go to www.friendsinthecorner.com. Welcome to Friends in the Corner podcast, stories and topics from around Kentucky. I'm your host, Dan, coming to you from beautiful Lexington. Thank you for checking out today's episode, and we hope you enjoyed today's interview as we talk with a good friend of Catherine and I's, Emma King. Emma is a certified music therapist here in the Lexington area, and Emma comes on today's episode to tell us about the realms of musical therapy and some of the treatments that they do in that field as well. And before I met Emma, I had no idea what music therapy was. And on today's episode, she gives us a really detailed outline of what she does as a musical therapist and the treatments that she does for her patients and the growth of the field in general across the country. We also have Catherine on today's episode, and bear with the three of us as we kind of go on a few tangents from here to time, but Emma does such a good job of delivering some very valuable information about this field that needs to get a little bit more attention. If you want to learn more about music therapy after today's episode, Emma does give her email address out, and you can get some links from her, and you can find her at emmakingmtbc@gmail.com. You can also find us at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. And if you like today's episode and want to hear some of our others, go to www.friendsinthecorner.com. But I really enjoyed talking to Emma on today's episode, and I hope you guys get something out of today's episode as well. And I say without further ado, let's welcome in the guest of honor, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Emma King. You know, I am someone that did not grow up with any music talent at all, but because of my lovely wife, I've gotten to learn a lot more about music and meet some of her more musically inclined friends, including our guest today, Emma King. Emma, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good. And we got Catherine back on the show too.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome. Yeah. And Emma, I've gotten to know over the last couple of years because of my wife, Catherine. And so we're going to be talking about a lot, but can you tell us a little bit about how you two met?
Catherine and I both went to WKU and majored in music ed, and so I got to meet her through friends in Bowling Green, and I'm so glad that I did.
When did I first meet you? Was it at the KMEA conference?
I think.
Or was it? Oh, no. Actually, I remember exactly when I met you. You may not remember this.
Oh.
So my friend Ashley and I conducted auditions for the WKU Honors Band when Emma was like a sophomore in high school, because she's a little bit younger than me. And do you remember this?
I do remember.
Yeah, I met you for the first time there, and I think we met again a few years later.
Mm-hmm. I remember that too now, because I remember I was kind of jittery before my audition, and I came in, and you and Ashley were very kind. It like helped me calm down for flute auditions.
I don't know how we ended up being in charge of that, because it was just like us in there, wasn't it? Was Dr. Alvarez in there?
I don't think she was that time. I feel like it was y'all, yeah. I feel like I maybe saw her like later, but
Well, I was going to say what I've kind of heard from all of the Bowling Green, Western Kentucky friends is, like you said, you're a little bit younger than Catherine. Catherine was kind of like the bubbly personality of Western Kentucky. And then after she graduated, you took the reins as the bubbly one.
I remember, so this was like, I remembered you from the flute auditions, but it was before that we had kind of gotten to reconnect and stuff, and in Bowling Green when we were both living there. And I remember somebody saying that I reminded them of you, and I remember just hearing like a lot of good stuff about you, and like I still look up to you. So
Well, I look up to you too.
thank you, Fred.
Yay, we all love each other.
Can you?
Well, Emma, we're excited to have you on the show here, and we're going to be talking about your career as a music therapist, which is something I have just always been fascinated in since I've met you, because I had no idea what music therapy really was.
Dan, how many careers in music can you name off the top of your head?
Music teacher, music performer, music therapist, music enthusiast. Is there more than that? That's it. Am I missing a bunch?
Well, I think that's actually a pretty good list. I feel like most careers are some variation of that, don't you think?
Not that
No.
I'm not trying to dunk on it or anything, but I wasn't sure how diversified it actually was.
Oh, it's actually like super diversified. Musicians know how to do everything because it's really hard to get a job in music, So you just kind of do what you're good at, and you turn it into a music thing. So.
Nice. Well, we're excited to learn a lot about this new echelon of diverse music I didn't know about, Emma, and I'm excited to have you on here. So we asked the hardest hitting question at the start of the show here: who you are and where you from?
All right. So I am from Madisonville, Kentucky, Western Kentucky. And then I went to WKU for music ed and moved to Lexington to go to grad school for music therapy. And now I'm a music therapist.
Nice. Now, one thing led to another. And where you were Catherine 2.0 in Western, and then moved to Lexington, and now you're her equal.
Emma's always been cooler than me.
You're coolio.
I don't know if I actually consider myself like a true resident of Lexington. Do you feel that way? Or
I feel, yeah, like I don't really feel like it yet. Like I feel like I'm maybe approaching feeling that way. I feel more like it than I did a couple years ago, but like,
right,
I'm
it's like being an immigrant to Lexington, you know?
yeah.
Let me ask you, since you both are Bowling Greenians, how much cooler is Lexington than Bowling Green?
Ooh, that's a good question.
We both, Catherine and I just looked at each other and we're like,
Are we going to throw our city under the bus?
So we've had this conversation a lot, but I want to see if you agree. I think Bowling Green has way better like ethnic food than Lexington. Have we ever talked about this?
we maybe not exactly, but like a little bit. I love the food in Bowling Green. I agree, and like I do miss Bowling Green. I feel kind of like I can't choose. I would feel like I was betraying Bowling Green if you know what I mean? Like, but I like both. I guess it would kind of depend like what you're wanting to do. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Just the side, even flow, peanut butter and jelly, Bowling Green, Lexington. What do you feel about Louisville?
I haven't spent that much time in Louisville, honestly, but I don't feel bad to say, like, I feel more partial to Bowling Green and Lexington.
That was such a kinder answer than what I know Catherine's going to give.
I
Catherine,
hate Louisville. I hate it. Never go there.
the people are fine. That's the city itself is scary.
Oh,
Yeah, Bowling Green's actually not as safe as it used to be now either. One of my friends was telling me her uncle got jumped. He was just walking around Bowling Green and someone mugged him.
Jeez.
that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Stuff like that didn't used to happen. But truly, though, this is a little dark for a podcast. But I think the tornado, there's been a lot more crime and just people living in poverty. It's really depressing.
Yeah, that's just so sad, everything that happened. And
Yeah.
So music therapy. So Emma, you told us you are, as of now, a certified music therapist. You're finishing your degree up at UK, and your degree is in is it going to be a master's, an MS music therapy? Is that what it is, or okay?
So this, I like to joke that how many M's can you put together because it's your Master of Music in Music Therapy. So,
Okay, you're MMMT. MMMT. So you're MGMT, like the band.
I was
Yes.
just thinking
Oh,
that.
there's time to pretend.
There. I can already feel the copyright strike.
We do not represent MGMT. We are not affiliated.
So, what was it that got you interested in becoming a music therapist?
Well, a few different things did. So I'm thinking about a few moments along the way that kind of helped me decide this was what I wanted to do. But kind of the big overarching thing was I was thinking about jobs that involved music, research, and people.
Maybe we should take a step back here. Sorry, I didn't mean to just start answering this question. But yeah, what about music? What was it that, because you, like Catherine, you were a musician. You're actually a flautist. Is that what it is? A flute player, just like Catherine. So what got you inspired to get into the realms of music first? And then we'll go to the music therapy.
It was kind of along the way. It felt like I couldn't not do music, I guess, because just I loved it. And I thought about doing different things, but I could not imagine not having music playing a big role in my life. And so I wanted to do something that would keep it in there, even though I thought about some other careers, like when I was in high school and everything. But I felt like I just kept coming back to music, and it made me feel like nothing else really did.
When did you start playing flute?
I started playing flute. So, okay, in 5th grade, I was in Catholic school. I was only there 5th and 6th grade.
You went to a Catholic school?
Only for 2 years.
I can't believe we've never talked about this.
It's like, I call it my stint in Catholic school because it was just like 5th and 6th grade. But in 5th grade, for the first half of the year, we played recorders. The second half of the year, we started band instruments. So it was when I was 10, I started the flute. Yeah.
So why did you pick the flute? Because I definitely had like a stupid reason why I picked it.
Why did you pick it, Catherine?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. So there were this popular series of books when we were kids. Oh gosh, what were they called? Like 1-800. Okay, so you probably read this when you were a kid. It's about a girl that gets struck by lightning. So when she sees a picture of people and she goes to sleep, she dreams wherever these people are. So she finds missing people, and she's a flute player. And that's the reason I wanted to play the flute. The books were ridiculous because, like, part of the plot of the book is she doesn't even know how to read sheet music. And she, like, gets into Juilliard playing, like, Green Day. So it's ridiculous. But I loved those books so much. My sister still has them at home.
And that's what inspired you to pick up a flute?
Yeah, they were cool. I love those books.
Were you a cool flute player?
No, Dan. A flute isn't a cool instrument.
I was a bass player, kind of. And I was not cool either.
The bass is cool, though.
Bass is cool.
No, it's not.
Wait, did you say what the books are called? I want to read them.
Gosh. Okay, so it's like a phone number or something. Mm-hmm. I think the main character is named Jess. I'm going to find them the next time I'm at my parents' house, and I'm going to bring them up to you because they really are good books. I loved them. Have you not read them before?
I really don't think so, and it feels like something that I need to read now.
Well, it's ridiculous because, like, literally half the plot is like, oh, me and my best friend are both going to Juilliard. I just learned how to read music. And I feel like this woman did not know anything about flute playing, like, at all, and made no effort to learn about it.
But do we know, did she play Wake Me Up When September Ends or Holiday, or, like, what did she play?
Oh, gosh. Well, okay, the whole thing that she did was like, I play everything by ear. So she just named these really like trendy like rock songs of the moment. And she would play them like by ear, and the professors would be like, you're so gifted, but you have to learn. And she played everything by ear in band, and she even had like an arch nemesis that played the flute. So they were good books. They really were.
And lots of layers and things going on. I like it.
I feel like I'm going to think of the name of those by the end of this interview, and I'm going to tell you what it is.
Yes. Well, I'm going to put that on my reading list. I'm excited right now.
And so what got you inspired to pick up the flute?
The flute. Okay, so a few things I'm remembering about this question. So I do remember that at first I wanted to play the French horn, and at the Catholic school, at least when we were trying instruments, there was not a French horn. So I was like, I'll try the flute. And I remember that the person who was having us try instruments, who was from the music store, said, okay, to play the flute, it kind of depends on the shape of your mouth. But if it's a good fit, then you can act like you're blowing out birthday candles and make a sound on the flute. And so it took a couple tries, but then blew out the birthday candles and played the flute. Tried to play the clarinet, was not as successful. I think it reminded me of a moo of a cow and a bit more than an instrument sound. So I was like, okay, leaning toward the flute, process of elimination, because I liked these instruments. And I don't think this was the main reason, but it was a reason. I was a pretty active member of Neopets.com at this point. You could have a profile song on Neopets. A couple of mine had been It Ends Tonight by All American Rejects, Glamorous by Fergie. But someone had one that was a flute playing Dust in the Wind by Kansas. And I didn't know what that song was, but I was like, that's beautiful. Oh my gosh. And so like hearing that, like I was like, I'd be cool with playing the flute, even though I was thinking about the French horn. But I don't know. I'm glad now that I play the flute, but it is really funny. I feel like it's one of those domino things. Like, what if that day in 5th grade had been different? Like, I wonder how my life would be different now.
So Catherine, since we've been together, has enlightened me that every instrument has a personality to it. And, you know, I've got, from the French horn players I know, all 2 of them, you don't seem like a French horn type of personality.
But something you might not know about Emma is that, like, she's crazy smart. Like, that band director was probably like, yes, a smart kid is joining band, and they want to play the French horn, because French horn is, like, really hard. So,
Thank you. I
bet they would have made you do that if you weren't really good at flute.
Well, thank you, and y'all are very smart yourselves. I appreciate it.
I'm a lucky idiot. So we went from a book and Green Day to inspiring Catherine to play flute to Dust in the Wind on a flute for you. So very, very interesting how these tides turn here for you guys. You guys went to school to study it.
Well, working with kids, like, kids just, like, do random stuff for no reason, or their logic doesn't make any sense. So really it makes sense when we were kids that was the reason why we chose to play the flute.
It's like, yes. So you went to
That's true.
so you went to undergrad at Western and got your degree in music music ed, or I guess music ed, or was it music ed, just like Catherine. And then went on to music therapy. So yeah, what inspired music therapy?
So for music therapy, I remember a couple different things. So one of the moments that makes me think of is the summer before I started college. I was playing in pit orchestra in my hometown, Madisonville, and so we were playing the pit orchestra, Sweeney Todd, and there was a violinist in the pit orchestra, and she was finishing up her music therapy degree, and I didn't really know very much about what music therapy was, but I just kind of asked her to tell me about what she did. And I don't know, something kind of clicked in my brain at that point, and it was like, wow, like, I don't know, it sounds like it brings together all these things that I love, and it sounds like, you know, this person loves it, but I was just it's kind of started planting that seed, I guess. But I don't know, I was thinking, you know, about becoming a music teacher too, and I did my music ed degree, and I still love teaching, but there was part of me that kept coming back to music therapy, and so as I was learning about it, I also really liked, for music therapy, some of the different places that you could work, and like with all ages, and it was a few different things, but part of it too, I think, was just a gut feeling, like, this feels like kind of the path that I want to go on.
That's cool, like a calling in a way. So, because I'm kind of a novice, I don't know much about music therapy, but what exactly is music therapy? Is it just like you go in and playing your flute in front of somebody and hopefully it like heals their legs or something? Or you know,
now that sounds like something that happened in that book.
But yeah, I'm just curious. What kind of therapy can music bring to people? Can you kind of walk us through like what a treatment looks like? I guess to say.
Yes. So something that is interesting to me about music therapy is that it can look just a lot of different ways and really depends on the person you're working with. But music therapy, for kind of like broadly what it is, we can think about you're using music to address clinical goals in a therapeutic relationship. And so you're working with someone on their goals, which might be related to their emotions or their cognition or their social or emotional goals, and really depending on the person. But can talk a little bit about some of the different goals that music therapists might address.
Yeah, sounds good.
So for some physical goals, you might work with someone who is in the hospital and experiencing some pain after a procedure or because of a diagnosis or an illness that they have. And so you might work with them on pain management and on using music as an outlet or as a positive distraction. But on another side of it, there's a branch of music therapy that's called neurologic music therapy, and other music therapists who use other approaches can work on these things too. But one thing that's interesting is that approach uses how music impacts the brain, and you can work on things like developing gait or learning to walk again, maybe following a stroke or something like that. And so it's something that I think is really neat about music.
Is it kind of like, in a way, like based in the same realms as like meditation almost? Like you're listening like to a quiet noise or something, kind of focus on that. Like is it in that kind of same echelon, would you say?
It can be. That's a really good thing to like compare it to, because it can definitely be that. And there's like a whole kind of category that's like meditation and music too. One thing that's so if someone's working on walking or gait, there's something called rhythmic entrainment, and someone's brain can actually entrain to the beat. And if you get a pace that's close to the speed of their walking, then they may be able to line up with the beat of the music and have something that's kind of a boost or an assist in their brain so that they can walk more easily. And I don't know. It really depends on the person and everything, but it's, I don't know. Music, can also use for emotional expression, like in songwriting, or working with people who have memory loss, and practicing that recall and playing like a music-based trivia game or something in music therapies.
What do you think is the coolest thing you've ever gotten to do, like as a music therapist?
That's that good.
Or are you allowed to say?
I can. I'm trying to think. The coolest part, I would say, like some of my favorite memories so far are just getting to hear the stories of the people I've been working with, and just getting to work with people from a lot of different places and backgrounds. And I think that the music sometimes can act kind of like a vehicle and help us build that relationship and that trust. And so just like getting to hear the things they share about their life, I think that's probably my favorite part. And yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, though. I'll keep thinking about it.
Well, and you're still very young into your career too. So.
Yes.
So I'm sure when we do this podcast again in 10 years, you're going to be the elite music therapist of Kentucky. So, I got a question too. As far as music goes, like, what kind of music, like genre-wise or category-wise, do you use to in your sessions, or would you use? Like, do you use more classical music, more soothing sounds like flute, or do you use like classic rock? Like, can I listen to AC/DC and get the or something like that?
That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely you can listen to AC/DC. So this is another thing that I've really enjoyed learning about music therapy is person-preferred or patient-preferred music. And so there's some research that says that the music that people prefer the most can be the most effective for working on their goals. And so there are some other things that can come into play too. But what someone's favorite music is, and the tendency is their favorite music from when they're a teenager to when they're about 30. That music tends to be pretty impactful throughout their life just because of the way that your memory is encoding that music. But
lots of punk rock for me.
lots of punk rock.
Yeah.
Mine's like 2014 Tumblr music. Like
It ends tonight that you were talking about. When darkness turns to light, it ends tonight.
There's my third copyright strike.
we're not affiliated with the All American Rejects.
That is the intellectual property.
But I think that's kind of cool because I think like for me, like when I work out, when I'm like lifting weights or something, I want something like heavier, like metal to lift to because it gets me more energized to lift heavier things. And then when I'm running, I want something with a little more rhythm to keep my pace up. So would you say that's kind of some echelons of music therapy as well?
Yeah, I think that is a great point. And I relate to that too, like with music in my life. Like I don't listen to heavy metal that much most of the time, but sometimes I will if I'm like exercising or something like that. And just like what you said, like those certain, I guess like
get your heart
properties.
pumping. So
Yeah,
get the blood going. We're going to listen to one song only.
Put this on loop. Yeah.
And that's Party Rock Anthem. FAO.
Party rockers in the house. Oh,
No, you're good
copyright.
talking. So are you, so like so like my buddy who's a PT, he, when he's doing physical therapy, I mean, he's got exercises that he's doing with his clients to help them with their mobility and movement. So what does like an exercise that you give your clients look like?
Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad that you brought up PT too, because earlier I was talking about those physical goals. And so something too that's important to remember with music therapy is like we work on goals in those different areas, but we don't have that, of course, like same scope of practice or anything as physical therapy. So something that can be really, I want to get more experience with and that I'm excited about is like co-treatment. Because if you're co-treating with a physical therapist, you might address the patient's physical therapy goals, but that's with the physical therapist there and present. But otherwise, for a music therapist who is not co-treating, then we will do an assessment of what goals to work on with the patient. And typically, whenever possible, we like to do this in collaboration with the people we're working with because we want the goals to be something that's important and relevant to them and that's something that they want to work on. And sometimes, too, we'll have goals and we prioritize what's going to have the most immediately positive impact on someone's life. So, for example, this is not something that I have really worked with anyone on before, but a music therapist might use techniques to help someone eat again if they haven't been eating, and that like immediate need of needing food to survive and something. If someone, because some music therapists work with people in like eating disorder recovery, or maybe if someone's having a lot of pain and having difficulty eating, might work on managing that pain and addressing that more immediate need. But
what's something you would do to like help someone do that? That's really interesting.
It's so, I feel like this example that I'm giving, like there would be like different members of the treatment team involved at this point and stuff like that for this example. But as like one member of the treatment team, something that we might work on could be emotional expression, and talking about like what's on someone's mind, or just working through maybe some difficult emotions and kind of maybe the reason behind some of the difficulties they might be going through. Or if it's for pain management, there's a technique in music therapy that's called the ISO principle. And this is where someone's maybe having pain or having kind of agitation or like a faster heartbeat or something like that. You'll typically pick like faster, heavier music, and then gradually pick slower and calmer music. And this can help to reduce the heart rate and reduce some of that pain. And so trying to meet someone where they are, I think it would really depend. And I guess like in this situation, like this kind of example, like there would need to be communication with different members of.
So it sounds like with your realm, it's an additional. It combines with other practices to help the patient out. Like you were bringing up the idea of PT. You're like working with them or working with maybe a neurologist or something, like to add another layer to treatment for a patient. Mm-hmm. Is that the best way to say it?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
No, that's that is what it can look like a lot of the time. And sometimes a person might be doing music therapy and not other therapies, but in that case, like but a lot of it is like co-treating or even if you're not co-treating, still just trying to use information from the other specialties within your scope of practice. But for music therapy, it's a reason that someone might participate in music therapy is if they're really responsive to music. So that's one thing that we can assess in a music therapy assessment is because music, some people will enjoy it more than others and certainly enjoy different types of music more than other types. But so a music therapist, like in a school setting, working on the goals from a student's IEP plan or something like that. Might,
do you go into public schools and work with kids? Or
I don't right now, but I have some friends who do. I did have a practicum that was with a group in a school, so we weren't doing that. So it's a group, but some music therapists do go in and do individual sessions on the IEP goals.
That's cool.
Something I'd like to get some experience with.
So if you, I mean, obviously not giving too many details and because for your patients, but, and I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but what kind of treatments have you already started doing in your field?
So I can talk about kind of some of the settings that I've been in before. So I've gotten to do some work. So I'll talk first about my music therapy internship because that was a big learning stage and so I started out my internship in Tampa and then COVID happened.
then COVID had, yeah.
But some of the settings where we would go would be on different days of the week to a children's hospital and then to work one-on-one with veterans and then some work with older adults too in an assisted living facility and also some work with people in psychiatric recovery. And so that was what I was doing at that point, and now working more with kids through young adults with disabilities and some older adults too.
That's awesome. Well, very cool. So you gotten to kind of get a whole gamut here of different age levels and different situations and stuff. I remember you going to Tampa for the whole you were there for 2 weeks before COVID hit, or
it was almost 2 months. So I'm glad that it was I started in January, but it went by fast though. And I remember we said our byes and everything, so it was going to be gone for several months and everything. But everyone listening, y'all know about COVID.
I had a buddy, the PT I was telling you about. He had his clinicals in West Virginia, and I think he was only there for a week before they canceled it and told him to go home. So he was like, yeah, got to see some people and then leave. So
oh no,
yeah, so gotta love the pandemic.
So did you actually have to finish up your internship?
I did, but we did the rest of it remotely. So some of it we did telemusic therapy, and then some of it was other projects.
So that's a great question too. So I mean, you were talking about how this impacted your internship, but how else has COVID impacted your field particularly, and your education? Because I mean, you've been going to school in the middle of all this.
Our friend's wife, she's always talking about it's amazing. There's this whole generation of doctors who basically went to online school for part of the pandemic.
Wild. Oh man, everything with COVID is still wild.
It is.
Yeah, because it's still in the hospitals and a lot of places. I mean, they're still on guard and masking and being protective. So
that I don't know. So I would say some of the ways it has affected me. I think that, well, one thing that brings to mind is like I have a lot of gratitude for all of the supervisors and teachers, professors who helped make it. They really made the best of this situation, I think, and made sure that we had opportunities to learn and to do everything that we needed to do to stay on track. And so grateful for that, very appreciative. And also with COVID, so I would say a big thing that it brought up for music therapy was getting more virtual services. And so especially as we were adjusting to that, I think that was challenging. And I think COVID obviously is a terrible thing. And one good thing that did come out of it is I think now people in maybe areas that are far away from where music therapist lives might be able to get those services in a way that they couldn't before, because we have more training now. And as a group, I know there are music therapists who have been doing virtual services for a long time, but I think as a profession, from what I've seen and heard, it seems like this is a way to increase access as more people can do these remote services now. So that's one good thing.
That's awesome. And yeah, that kind of segues, I guess, into another question I have for you then is what does the field of music therapy look like nationwide, globally? Because like I said, until I met you, I had no idea what this program was. I didn't even know UK offered this program. So it's kind of, I would like to know, like, where's the field at and how is it growing right now?
Mm-hmm. So I saw this question when you sent me the interview questions, and I wanted to double check. So I Googled like how many music therapists there are.
Yeah.
And so there is the certification board for music therapists, and that's where I took my board exam to get board certified after internship. But so over 9,000 music therapists in the U.S. and abroad hold this.
So only 9,000 globally? That's not that many. That's crazy. So
in some other countries, I think they use a different credential.
Okay.
I think most of the people who took the CBNT exam are in the U.S., but I really think it's growing, and yeah, but it's also kind of for the thinking about the future of music therapy and everything. So this is the number of people who've taken the board exam, but one thing we can think about too is for advocacy is taking the board exam and doing that, like, sorry, I'm kind of like,
oh no, you're fine.
Oh,
yeah, I guess so. Another question, since you said there's 9,000, within this certification, do you know? I'm sorry if this throws off your research, but what about in Kentucky? Would you have an idea how many music therapists are in Kentucky right now?
I don't actually remember how many are in Kentucky, but I do remember about 3 years ago at a Kentucky music therapy day, I saw a map that showed what counties had music therapy.
Uh-huh.
And so some good news is that in the 3 years since I saw that map, more of those counties do now have music therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I was excited about that. Most of the music therapists are in Fayette County and Jefferson County because of the programs at U of L and UK.
Yeah.
But it's growing in Bowling Green and in Western Kentucky, and
so it's starting to spread out into the rural areas too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as a music professional, I think it's really cool that there are more pathways for musicians now than there used to be, because I'm sure it was like this when you started out college. Really, the only things they talk about that you can be are a professional gig musician or a music teacher. Like, those are the two career pathways that you're given. And I think it's really awesome that there are other things that you can do besides that.
I think that I had that like in my head that it was like those couple of paths. That was like kind of what I was thinking before I learned more about music therapy. And like I think they are both like wonderful paths, but I feel like this path was kind of the one that was for me. And I was like, I'm happy with this, like to just like learn about more careers in music.
Yeah,
I feel that.
Well, and so let me ask you this: with you going to UK, because you said UK has a program and U of L has a program, or I guess you said Louisville, as I assume is U of L. How many different programs are there that you know of, and why did you choose UK?
How many different programs?
If you know, because I feel like that's not like a really a really big program at a lot of colleges. Like I said, I didn't even know UK offered it.
Didn't you apply to like 6 of them?
I think it was 6. So I think there are a lot of things that people think about to choose a music therapy program, and so there are some different approaches within music therapy. So that's one of them is like, what kind of music therapy do you want to practice? But of course, like people are different, and so like that can evolve too in school and once you're out of school. But I think some of the biggest things that drew me to UK were the faculty here and just how like supportive and helpful they were as I was looking at schools. And Lexington also was a big draw, just the city here, and
This is great.
it's a great
Like we were
place.
just hyping it up earlier. So.
And so I'm thinking too about like friends and family and everything, and the different practicum options and different training that you could do here. There were a lot of different settings, and so I was thinking like, you know, I haven't started music therapy yet, and I don't quite know where I want to work. So I like that this has different options, but it kind of helped me realize that I like working with a lot of different populations. So it's been good to get to see like private practice and everything.
Well, I'm just glad you can bleed blue now too.
Didn't you almost go to Florida State for your music therapy?
I thought really hard about it. It's
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to see. What other schools offer this? Like, say UK, U of L, Florida State's got a big one. It sounds like so. There's a couple options for people to go to. Because I think like in Ohio, where I'm from, I'm sure there's a school in Ohio that probably has like Ohio State or something. Does Ohio State offer it or?
Oh no, Ohio University does.
Oh, you okay?
And-
So I'm always curious about how many programs have it. So there's openness to people wanting to go into it. So
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I cannot remember the number, but there are some programs all around the country, and then like for the American Music Therapy Association, it's broken into like different regions of the country, and then those regions have student organizations, like, but one thing that a couple of my friends and I looked at for a presentation was different grad programs and which ones were available remotely or as a low residency program. And I feel like, especially in COVID times, that can be a helpful option. So,
awesome. Well, very cool. Well, once again, I'm glad you can bleed blue now. So
blue and red for Go Tops.
I'll take that red. If it's Louisville Cardinals, we might have some other issues.
And, you know, honestly, I think a lot of students at a lot of universities now are asking for a music therapy program because students have been asking for that at Western, right?
Yes, I know some of my friends at Western like helped show me the ropes, thinking especially of Emily McDuffie. And just like how helpful it was to have a friend who was a couple years ahead of me in school who wanted to do music therapy, and she had been planning on it for a long time. So I asked her so many questions. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think people just want more options of what they can do with their careers in music. You know, it feels good not being as limited and having something that's really cool like that.
I want to know too much. I have a journalism degree, so yeah, I'm not doing much except the podcast. So Emma, as a certified music therapist, what are you hoping to do to help grow the field?
So thinking about growing the field, a big part of that is just music therapy advocacy. And so there are some different things going on with music therapy advocacy around the country. And so I did my internship in Florida, and being there, I got to see how a Medicaid waiver in music therapy was really helpful for people being able to access those services. And it's the same thing in Indiana. Now they have this Medicaid waiver, and so a lot more people are able to participate in music therapy who have been working on their goals that way. And so I hope to see that happen in more states, and a lot of states have task forces for music therapy working on things like state licensure. And so that is kind of what I was trying to get at earlier with talking about the board exam is so things like that. It can,
I guess that's a weird thing just to segue into here, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but because you said Medicaid, and I didn't even think about the cost and all that stuff. But what about insurance? Has insurance been a little more accepting of paying for medical for music therapy, or is that still kind of some gray lines right now trying to cross to get insurance to cover medical music services?
So that is a great question, and it depends a lot on the state and the setting.
Okay.
So
don't a lot of facilities that are sponsored by the state hire music therapists to? Isn't that what Emily's doing now, or
that's Emily. Working. I'm trying to think. So a lot of state, like, it seems to be like happening more like a state facility or something will hire. So it is really helpful when we can have that facility funding, and then insurance coverage. It really does seem to still depend a lot, but for things like an IEP, a student's individualized education plan, and so what that shows, this student benefits from using music to address this goal in their IEP plan, then they have a right to those services. And so with that, then those services have to be fulfilled. And then in other settings, it can depend some more. And so it's like, if someone has a certain diagnosis or something like that, then they might be able to get insurance coverage for music therapy. It seems to be becoming more common, which is good, but we still a lot of advocacy work being done. Like Kentucky also has a task force that is working on this advocacy. And so in a lot of states, like the advocacy and working towards state licensure means that those things can eventually be used to get recognition and more insurance coverage and more people being able to afford it. So it's also helpful for like working toward those ideals of justice and people having equitable access to these services.
Yeah, well, that's awesome to hear. So very fascinating. I know it sounds like you want to be kind of an advocate for that too, with Medicaid and insurance, to say, hey, this is an important field.
Yeah.
And Dan's mom works in pain management. I don't know if I've ever told you that. Do you think at some point, like, music therapy can be really helpful as like an alternative to narcotics or other like traditional forms of pain management?
I think that it really can be, and some of the research on that I think is fascinating too, and I definitely want to like keep learning about that. But it's it can be a really helpful pain management tool, and so something that a lot of music therapists will do, especially in the medical setting, in their assessment, is to ask the patient for their pain rating on the pain scale of like 1 to 10, and then at the end of the session to take it again. And so there's some research on that too, and just showing how engaging in music can help to be a positive distraction and take the brain off of that pain and offer a positive stimulus in place of that painful stimulus. And so I think the neuroscience behind all of it's really interesting too, and how music uses the whole brain. And with Catherine being a music teacher, she knows about all of that, obviously, and is wonderful and working on that with her kids. And so it's really powerful what music can do for learning and using the whole brain.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, just it can be a more holistic approach to medicine in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool. And I'm sorry if anyone hears some raggedy noises outside. We haven't really talked about this, but not only is Emma a great music therapist, she is also sometimes the caretaker to our cat Kit Kat when we're out of town. She is Kit Kat is very much bonded with Emma.
She is my four-legged bestie. I love Kit Kat with my whole heart.
Yeah, right now she's standing outside the door meowing. You think I should just let her in?
Yeah, we can let her in. If you, she's outside Emma's door. If you want to let her in that side, or is she on that side?
She wants in that bad. She didn't get in.
Okay.
Kit Kat.
Kit Kat.
So we're gonna be winding down here, Emma, and I've got one last question I'll ask you here. But before we do that, do you have any other questions you want to ask her?
So I remembered what those books are called.
Oh, yes. Okay, I want to write it down.
Okay. It's 1-800 Where Are You?
Where are
But it's like, I think it's spelled in a weird way. And that's the series title. There are a bunch of different books in the series, so that's it.
I love it. 1-800 Where Are You? Mm-hmm. Okay, definitely want to check this out. Thank you.
So if anyone ever wants to be inspired to become a flute player,
Everybody should play flute.
Everyone.
That's what Dr. Alvarez taught me. Everyone should. Everyone.
Wow.
She's the best.
She is. I love Dr. Alvarez.
Well, Emma, this has been so much fun learning more about this field. I'm super fascinated by it, and thank you for coming on to share some of your knowledge.
Thank y'all for having me. This
Yeah.
was really fun.
So the last question I ask my guests at the end of every interview is the same one I've been starting to do for a while now. Mm-hmm. This year in 2022, one of my big goals is to develop an attitude of gratitude. And so every day, whether I say it out loud or I write it down, I try to say 3 things that I'm grateful for. And so I like to challenge my guests to do the same thing. So if you don't mind me asking, what are 3 things you're grateful for?
Okay. Oh, I love that question. Okay. I'm grateful for my friends. And I'll say grateful for music. I'm looking out your window and the sun is setting, and that is something that brings me joy every day too. So I'll say sunset.
Sunset? Hey, those are some great things. So, and we're grateful for you too. And I'm sure Kit Kat, she's grateful for you also.
I'm grateful for Kit Kat. She's my girl.
She was so excited when you came over today. She knew exactly who was here.
And that she's getting more used to the sound of your doorbell. Good
One
news.
day she'll be a good cat. No,
Will she?
No. Well, Emma, if my listeners want to learn more about you or learn more about music therapy, where can they find that online?
Oh yes. Okay. So I'll give my email address if anybody has any questions or wants me to send them any links or something. My email address is emmaking@gmail.com. So that's emmaking@mtbc@gmail.com. And for music therapy, so I will give a couple of websites. So the World Federation of Music Therapy has an about page, and so this is an international music therapy organization. On their about page, there are info cards about music therapy, and they're in some different languages, and their website has a lot of good stuff. And the American Music Therapy Association's website is musictherapy.org, and they have a lot of different fact sheets and information about music therapy with different populations and in different settings. And then cbmt.org, that's the certification board for music therapists. There's a Find a Music Therapist portal if you're looking for a music therapist in your area. I think that page may be under construction right now, but I bet it's coming back soon. And then there's a free peer-reviewed open access journal about music therapy. If anyone's looking for some scholarly articles, it's voices.no. That's the Voices World Forum for Music Therapy. There are also some great podcasts and Instagram and things that talk about music therapy. So yeah, if anyone has questions and wants to email me, I'd be glad to talk to you. And Yeah, thank you.
Lots of resources. Awesome. Well, Emma, thank you so much for calling the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So, we'll see you the next time on Friends in the Corner.
See you next, or well, I won't be on here, but I'll listen to it. See you next time.